All right, so the next step is going to be to add the rear bumper. And as I was looking at this, I realized I had put this piece on backwards before. So I took it apart. I'm going to put it back together right. So here we have our bumper with the yellow part at the bottom. We need the red pegs to be pointing the other direction, but we need them to be below the gray parts here. So I'm going to put this back together the correct way, if I can without ruining the whole thing. There. That looks a lot better to me. Now this little part here we can't leave on there forever, but I'm going to leave it on now because I think I can, because it makes the spacing for these red pegs more accurate. As the red pegs are going to attach to these holes at the top of the motors. Come on. There we go. Okay. That's most of this. We are going to add an extra piece down underneath to give some more strength to the bottom of the robot. And I'm going to walk through those steps. And I'll remove this other part right now because I don't really need it now. Okay, so we're going to add a part at the bottom that will stretch across the robot and will give us some more stability. It's basically a strengthening element. So for this, we're going to use red connector pegs and our friends, the little half peg, half axle. You may be running out of these. I'm almost out with the kit that I'm working with. We have some extras, and then we'll have to get creative with short axles or something like that. All right, so we also need these parts here that have a single hole and an axle at 90 degrees. So we're going to put the axle part of the blue peg into that part, and we're going to run a red peg through the hole the other way. And then just as we always do, we'll make the other one of these symmetrical so that it points in, again, the opposite direction. So for this support beam, I realized I needed these 9 long beams, one for each side. And this is what all of these 3 pegs are for. We're going to put this beam on to those 3 pegs. As always, there's a little wiggling to get them in place. Lego is lovely that way. Okay, so those 3 are in place. And then we're going to add this little part that we made in the last step. And we need it to be 3 holes in front, like that. So it's 3 up from the end there, and then we put it in place. So we do the same thing on the other side. So we're going to add this piece. And notice this is connecting the rear bumper to the robot chassis in a very strong way as well, which is also a good thing. And then leave 2 holes. Can I hold a piece in my hand? There we go. Now we put this in place. I'm going to flip this over because the last step is to add this long beam. This is one of our 15 long beams all the way across, connecting one side of the robot to the other. There. That's a really strong thing. One of the strengths of this particular robot construction is that it's just built very well, so the robot will be stable and not try to fall apart. Okay, so the next step is to add this sensor. This is the brightness detector, and it's usually used to detect things like lines on the floor that the robot is rolling over. It shines a little light, and it can tell the difference between different reflectances of light. So we're going to mount this on the bottom of the robot chassis. I've taken the robot chassis and I've turned it upside down. The sensor is going to go right in here. But the first thing we have to do, as always, is to build a little structure to attach this robot, or the sensor, to the robot. All right, so we're going to start with one of these friends of ours, 3 long, has axles at 2 ends and 90 degrees off. It has a hole, and I have 2 little tiny 3 long axles that are going to go in here and connect to the sensor. So then we're just going to slide this through the holes here and put another one of the little 3 long axles on the other side. All right. Then we're going to take these long blue pegs. These are like my last long blue pegs. And we'll stick them in here, like so. Again, sticking the short end in so that it's too long. And we're going to take one of these pieces and 2 of the 3 long beams. We're going to put the 3 long beams on top and bottom to make a piece that looks like that. And then we're going to put this on here like this. But what'll happen is in between this piece and the actual sensor will be the part of the robot that we're connecting to. Okay, so what does that look like? We are going to connect to the actual vertical frame piece. We want to make sure that the sensor is pointing down, not up, and it's in this gap between the 2 frame pieces. And we're just going to slide these pegs through the holes in the frame. This is the square frame piece we started with originally. This is being really stiff for some reason, right? Just like that. And then we'll attach this on the other side, and it's in place. That's it. All right, the next step is to add our touch sensors, which we built earlier. If you remember, they have these 2 little pegs. And what we want to do is to snug this right up behind the beam that we added here. And this is where I had to move this beam forward, because if you look at this, we've got a black peg right there, and we have 2 open holes, and this is 3 wide. So it kind of has to fit right in that spot. Like that. Then we do the same thing on the other side. So we're going to put these 2 pegs into these 2 holes. Now, ultimately, we'll have to add on here some additional structure to connect these 2 together, because we want to be able to detect if something comes right in the middle of the robot, and then also if something comes on one side or the other. I made a start of that on the model that I'm going to keep, but I'll show that to you at another time. For now, this is all we have to do.